Good day, everyone, and welcome to Kepner-Tregoe's webinar on complex problem solving. Please remember that at any time you can ask a question simply by inserting it in the comment text field below. I'd like to begin by introducing our speaker today. His name is Gijs Verrest. He is our country manager and a senior consultant at KT. Gijs, without further ado, I would turn it over to you.
Thank you. So, welcome all to this webinar on complex problem solving, an introduction which hopefully will jumpstart your thinking on this topic. This is me, based in the Netherlands, and I'm 25 years active in the field of problem solving in industries like semiconductors, ICT, pharma, and aerospace. The agenda for today: we'll start with the brain, the mind of the problem solver. Then we'll talk about complexity, what makes complex complex, and how to avoid some of the common mistakes in problem solving. Lastly, having a systematic approach does matter a lot. Let's start with Kepner-Tregoe, or KT in short. We've been around for 6 decades helping organizations get better at problem solving. One of our more public feats is how NASA used Kepner-Tregoe, the approach of Kepner-Tregoe, to bring Apollo 13 safely back to Earth. The way we help organizations is through training, coaching, facilitation, and by integrating our approach in the way of working. We're working globally in many industries and languages, and our ambition is to drive improvements in manufacturing and service operations, and to the professional development of leaders in problem solving. Again, here's today's agenda. Let's get started. So luckily there's no real outage today, but there was one, a big one, last year on June 8th. The outage was with Fastly, a content delivery network, and thousands of government, news, and social media websites across the world went offline. Websites like Amazon, CNN, the New York Times, PayPal, and Spotify crashed. The impact was broad and severe and took hours to resolve. Welcome to the age of complex problems. We're living in a time where everything is connected, and problems are getting more and more complex because of it. Take, for example, the disrupted supply chains that we are seeing already for 2 years now. And not only more and more things are connected, but also the rate of technological change is huge. Vast amounts of data are being generated. Our problems are getting more and more complex. And with increasing complexity, also the impact increases too. True, the majority of problems are relatively simple, like a light bulb that needs replacing. You need hardly any tools and the effort is low. Some problems are tougher though, needing involvement of experts and some more problem-solving techniques and tools. Truly complex problems are more rare, but they take up more, but often invisibly, resources, and they pose more risks and need more powerful tools for analysis. This is also the age where everyone has become a complex problem solver. Take a toothbrush, for example. Toothbrushes have become rather complex, and so are the problems that we are having with it. The latest report of the World Economic Forum shows this clearly. Many of the needed skills for the future are to do with problem solving one way or the other. So where does all this problem solving happen? Right here in our heads. And let's say we want to get better at solving problems, solve those more effectively and taking up less time. On the one hand, we need to ensure the impact is right, get the right people involved and have good information. And as you are likely aware, that's not always the case. And then there's the thinking side. That needs to be high quality too. But where did we learn how to think? How well are we using a clear, structured process of thinking? The truth is, often we don't. We have learned to trust our intuition. Well, let me give you an example. You only have a few seconds to answer. A bat and a ball cost €1.10, and a bat costs €1 more than a ball. How much does the ball cost? If you listen to your intuition, the answer 10 cents probably came in pretty fast. and it's pretty wrong. So don't put too much confidence in your intuition. When problems get more complex and the impact larger, do you want people to say, my gut feeling is, and just follow their instincts? Or do you want them to follow a clear, structured thinking process? Let's talk about complexity itself. What makes complex complex? Some more clarity here is a good start. There are different dimensions to complexity. Sometimes the complexity lies in the solving side, sometimes on the problem side. On the solving side, take COVID-19 for example. Getting this virus under control has proven to be really challenging. There are many moving parts: technology, human behavior, legislation, including mutations of the virus itself, and sometimes the challenge lies on the problem side. Take the manufacturing of computer chips. Those silicon wafers are extremely hard to make, and finding the cause of a quality defect on a silicon wafer it can be truly challenging. So, complexity might lie in the understanding the problem, or it might be in the actual solving of a problem. But there's another dimension to complexity that's really important to understand. Some problems are truly complex, really tough, but actually, most problems that we call complex are not that. They are complicated. This is a particle accelerator. It's very complex in the sense that it's really hard to understand, bordering on the edge of scientific knowledge. That's complex. As I said, most problems that we call complex are not. They are complicated. They need to be unraveled, separated. And we're simply looking at multiple problems. And we can't see the forest for the trees. So, 4 different dimensions. First step in getting better at complex problem solving is realizing what kind of complexity it is that we are facing. Okay, what are common mistakes when trying to solve complex problems? Here are some tips for you. This is the first one. Don't start with solving. Start with the problem. We are often encouraged to act and we feel a sense of urgency and the pressure is on. And this leads to people starting with solving very ad hoc. And without understanding the problem and its cause, it becomes trial and error really fast. In other words, spend your efforts at understanding the problem first. Next tip. We often fail to recognize that we are trying to tackle more than one problem at once. We need to untangle this. Separate, separate, separate. Let me give you an example. Here is a Pareto chart. And choosing this bucket of defects to be solved makes sense, right? What doesn't make sense is that we often then start with shooting hail at the target. This is very, very likely a complicated problem. It needs to be unraveled first. Maybe the symptoms are similar, but this is not one problem. By recognizing the different problems, we can analyze them further and solve them. So, separate, separate, separate. Third tip, make that thinking visible. Here's an example from the pharmaceutical industry. A vial that has turbidity in its media, and this is not good. So, all hands on deck. And then there's chaos. With the thinking invisible, people get confused on where to start and what to do. By making that thinking visible and add structure to it, it becomes solvable. So make thinking visible. Let's finish by taking a closer look at why a structured approach matters. Here's a high-level overview of the structure behind our thinking. This is our problem-solving and decision-making model. It shows the different thinking processes in our mind. And here's what you could say is the ideal flow of solving problems, taking the right steps in the right order to get from an unclear situation to a solved problem. Without structure to the approach, this is what typically happens. There's all kinds of wasteful efforts in the attempts to be fast. Do you see that jumping to conclusions happening too? Here is a closing thought for you. The question is, When problems get more complex and the impact of not solving them first time right gets higher, how much trust do you want to place in an unstructured, intuitive approach?
Wonderful. We've reached the end of the formal portion of our webinar today. And Gijs, we've had several really excellent questions come in from our audience. Again, I just want to remind everyone, if you do have a question based on what you've seen, please feel free. Gijs, the first question I'd like to pose is, how do I know from a Pareto that there are actually different problems?
Yes, great question. Um, well, first, you don't. And so the symptoms might be the same, and you need to really understand the different problems, recognize the different problems. So gather information about those different occurrences to see if you have different problems. An example might be a doctor having patients with problems with their backs, and those sound the same, but if you understand, for example, where in the back you have those problems, you might see, well, there's actually different problems.
Excellent. Okay, the next question that just came in is, Gijs, what can you do to suggest how we deal with a strong personality within a team that thinks they know the solution when the rest of us disagree?
So one recommendation will be to have a dedicated facilitator, somebody who is more impartial, more objective, and has awareness of the different personalities and give the right people the right attention. And people which having might be strongly opinionated have a right to be heard, as well have other people. So he or she can direct by directing questions and listing everybody's opinions. He can give everybody the right on the spot.
So I think that answer sort of answered the next question we got. It's partially different, so I'd like to go ahead and pose it, Gijs. How is it best to organize for complex problem solving within a large organization? Is it good to have a dedicated team, or should everyone be taught about problem solving?
Well, first, it would be good to distinguish problems. Might be some part of the problem might be urgent, so you need to organize for the urgency of some problems. If there's fire, need be to fight the fires. Um, Finding cause might be a different task and needing different skills and qualities, and you need to organize for that. So the having dedicated teams is, when things get more complex, is really helpful. At the same time, having everybody speak the same language, have some foundational skills, as I presented it. Everybody becomes a problem solver. So in a way, you want everybody to have some skills around problem solving, but having people who are really good at it and be available at the right time is also key. Yeah.
Great. Next question from our audience is, how do we know a problem has actually been solved?
Yes. So first of all, understand the problem. And the question then is, have we found the cause? Have we understand the cause? Have we uh, verified the cause? Too often we think we know the cause, we removed it, and we haven't actually. So that's one thing to do, is really understand the cause, the true cause of a problem, and then implement the right corrective actions. And on top of that, think about preventive actions and how to detect this problem or similar problems in the future. And as I said before, there might be similar symptoms, but caused by different problems, and you need to be aware that you maybe have solved some of the problems, but not all of them. So that's also something to have detection in place for.
Okay. I love that slide with the finger pointing at you and the boss that's saying, bring me solutions and not problems. When the pressure is on, how do we act in order to be sure, that we're giving the right suggestion to a team?
Can you repeat that, Philip?
When the pressure is on, so we have a situation where the boss is demanding a solution and we're responsible for the problem solving team, what's the right way to act in order to give the right suggestion to the team?
I would say, first of all, when you talk about people speaking the same language and have a common understanding what's needed for problem solving, having this boss speak the same language and understand also what is important in order for problems to be solved is a good starting point. Because the pressure might be on, but if a boss is pushing for people to jump into action, it will be counterproductive. So I would say start problem solving starts at the board, starts at the top.
It's such an interesting topic, Gijs, because at KT, obviously, we deal a lot with trying to instruct leadership in understanding the basics and the foundation, and then they're less likely, right, to put so much pressure. Um, can we give examples or a framework of what the structured approach to problem solving is? I think you covered this a little bit, but do you mind just reiterating what you said about establishing a structured approach to problem solving?
So I could go back a couple of slides and show you this ideal flow.
Or maybe if you have an example off the top of your head.
So I'm not sure I get it. Repeat it, please.
I think this is exactly what they're asking for is, can you give an example of the structured approach to problem solving?
Yes, you can see on the screen, it shows the logical steps, and it really starts at understanding what's going on. And people, as I shown on the next slide, too often are too fast, and they really need to slow down. So the structure is in, first of all, slowing down and taking the steps in the right order and begin at the beginning and understanding the situation, uh, understanding the context, having everybody on the same page, uh, gathering the right information, have factual information, and go from an unclear situation to an understood situation, to understood problem or multiple problems, if there's often multiple problems, towards finding causes in a structured way and to addressing those causes in a structured way.
So what I heard you say, Gijs, was use good KT process, right? Can
Yes,
you
correct.
can you give any advice on how to build a culture? I think you already alluded to it with start at the top, but the next question that we received here is how do we build a culture of problem solving?
And I would say that also starts at the top. I too often get a question about that we want to train people in problem solving, and there's a group of people that we want to be trained, but they will not be able to be successful if it's not driven from the top, understood from the top what the challenges are. For example, sometimes the challenges are having the right information available. And if the information initially captures about problems is not good enough, those people will always be struggling with missing information, not factual information, vague information. So you need to organize for that. And also, leadership needs to be showing the importance of not only treating symptoms, fighting fires, but also the importance of understanding problems and removing those causes. Because otherwise, those problems will happen again, and we didn't have time first today, and we won't have time for them tomorrow. So we better get rid of them today.
That one slide that you showed, Gijs, that you pointed out at the bottom that 50% of all Harvard and MIT students get wrong, where the ball and the bat together cost €1.10, and the bat costs €1 more than the ball. People are asking if you could possibly solve that question or explain the answer to that question.
So let me go back to that slide just to make the thinking visible here. Give me a second. Here we are. So maybe this was too fast to realize what the right answer was. So when you see €1.10 and see €1, your mind, your unconscious mind, quickly jumps into making that calculation and say, oh, €1.10 minus €1 is 10 cents. And then there's 10 cents and it feels good. And that's what your unconscious thinking does. It gives you a good feeling, but might be not right. So if you now stop for a moment and think about it, and because if the bet is €1 more than the ball, and the ball is 10 cents, and the bet would be €1.10, and both of them together can be €1.10, then will be €1.20. So Just thinking about it for a couple of seconds probably already tells you, wait a second, it's 5 cents. Uh, the ball is 5 cents, the bet is €1 5 cents, and together they are €1 10. So when we consciously think about it, it's not that hard anymore. But we're fooled by our intuition.
It's rare, Heist, that I've seen so many questions. I'm literally flooded. The inbox is like popcorn here. But I do want to just take the time for a couple more questions. You showed the globe with the KT processes described, and the audience is asking if you could just briefly describe the PA, the problem analysis methodology for solving problems.
Yes, on a very high level, the process is pretty straightforward, very logical, you could say. There's four main steps, and the first step is describing the problem, gathering information about what is wrong with what, and then gathering information about where it's happening, when it's happening, and to what extent it's happening, and gathering information about where it's happening, for example, but also where it's not happening, having what we call is and is not information. And then, by understanding the problem, the next step would be identifying possible causes. And this might be by just asking experts, what do you think might be causing this? Or it might be that you really need some more information, some contrast actually, to find out why is this happening. And we call this distinctions and changes. Next step, third step, will be evaluating possible causes, using this information about our problem that we just gathered to evaluate which problems can we eliminate and which causes can we eliminate and which causes might make more or less sense, and come up with the most probable cause. And the last step of problem analysis is to actually prove what is the right cause, or verify the cause, that we know what really caused it.
Okay, Heis, we have time for one more question, and this is one that really I personally am very fascinated by. The audience is asking, are some people naturally better at problem solving than others?
So, twofold answer. One of them is, I think, the most important one. It's a skill. So, as with many things, skills can be learned. So you can be go through training to learn the skills, practice a lot, get feedback, get help there, and really get better at it. So that's the first part of the answer. I think that's most important. Secondly, some people have more preference for example, understanding problems first before they start generating ideas on how might we solve it, or before jumping into actions. There's some thinking preferences there, and those might be beneficial or not beneficial, depending a little bit on the issue itself. So sometimes the challenge might be in understanding the problem. Sometimes it might be in the solving side. And you need different qualities there. Some people might be more talented, for example, in the ID generation part, and some might be really good in adding structure to an analysis.
Very interesting. I mean, IQ is just one of those things, and what I also would agree with you, Heis, certain people tend to have a high level of passion for this topic, and I think based on the interest we've generated here, it might be a great idea to do another, because I just see so many questions we've left unanswered. But I want to tell you, the audience members, that we will be following up with anyone who asked a question in written form. We'll be answering you. And of course, if you'd like, we can do more webinars. KT does webinars on a regular basis. So at this point, I'd like to thank you, Gijs, for a very interesting webinar.
Yes, well, thank you very much. It's been my pleasure. Thank you all for the questions as well. And that's for sure triggered my thinking and for a longer time. And feel free to get in touch if you have some more questions. Have a nice day.
And everyone, again, please, before you go, if you don't mind giving us an evaluation, at the bottom of your screen, you'll see an evaluation form. And again, we'd like to thank you for joining us at this webinar. We've really enjoyed it. And again, on behalf of Kepner-Tregoe around the world, thank you and have a great day.